You guys are making me nervous.
You're making me nervous.
Anyways, but you know, I brought some souvenirs, a folder for every one of you, all the way from Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The film already dates back to early 2011, but would you like to say a few words about the film? We'll talk more for the Q&A session.
Well, you basically told the whole story. You don't say anything, right? But this film is probably one of the hardest roads that I've ever taken because, number one, I have no knowledge whatsoever about the Three Kingdoms. So when the director asked me to do this role, I was kind of reluctant and I wasn't sure if I can do this, but you know, I want to try different things, right? And I said the first obstacle was legendary. This person supposed to be, I don't know, 8 foot tall, giant, right? And then got beard all the way down to the floor, and which anything I have. And, so in the end class, but primarily I have not much of knowledge of the Three Kingdoms, but you know, I did the best I could, you know, did some research and trying to stay into the character, ate a lot of food. I was eating 5 meals a day, you know. When I did Ant Man, I was on a diet, eating 1 meal a day. So I did this film, I was eating 5 meals a day. So you know where the money went. The money went to food. But you know, I'm so happy.
Thanks a lot, Donnie. We'll be back on stage later, so keep your questions. I'm sure you have questions for this. Thanks again. It's an immense, immense honor for me to be on stage with you for your first appearance at the North American Festival. I just want to thank the Hong Kong Training and Cultural Council.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the who's who.
Alright, I'm only going to ask a couple of questions, and I know you have, I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Donnie Yen. But first of all, I want to say it's not just about your acting and that you're also the action choreographer of that film. You're very well known for your action directing work. And I want to ask you how you approach the various styles. You're, I think, better known for your boxing style, particularly Ip Man is your signature role at this point, I would say.
Well, first, I was trying to figure out how do you swing such a big sword with a long beard. It always gets tangled up with my beard. I don't know, you know, every time I do action directions, you know, I try to stay with the character, and you know, like I said in the beginning before the show, I told you guys that I didn't know too much of the Three Kingdoms books, right? But I did my research and try to understand the character, and you know, how can I bring this character alongside with trying to bring some freshness to the action choreography. Made up a scene with you know, the horse scenes and the alley scenes. We actually built. First, I came up with the whole idea of fighting on the horses. Then we built the set, and I want to make it even more complicated, interesting, by having the alley as narrow as possible, wide enough for 2 horses to fight in there, but narrow enough where you see the difficulty of having that complication of choreography in that whole fight alley scenes there, right? That's probably one of my favorite. And then at the end, you know, of course, you all know that the director directed the World Fair, so they are big fans of modern contemporary action. So we kind of collaborated, and at the end it was more like a General Kwan, kind of like slash a SWAT, you know. I was running around with shooting people with my arrow. That's pretty much.
I thought that scene in the alleyway was absolutely amazing. I have to say, I think it's probably
actually, you know, because you know sometimes you guys probably maybe you don't realize how difficult to work with animals. It's very difficult to keep control of the horses, right? You tell them to move, but it doesn't move, you know, so you're kind of stuck in the middle of the alley, and you know, you can't, go boy, go boy. Swinging the sword, moving fast, you know. And I'm fighting this guy behind me, and my horse doesn't move, and you know, we just kind of got jammed up in the middle of the alley seats, you know. And then we have to do it again, you know, from the start, the beginning of the alley. So it's quite complicated.
So you've played Kuan Yu, this mythical figure, the historical figure of Chinese history, big martial arts figure. You've played Ip Man. Are you interested in exploring more roles like this, other kung fu masters, Wong Fei Hong? Is that the kind of things you want to do? Because right now you're at this juncture, you're an action.
I pretty much did a lot of stuff. You know, I did Monkey King.
That's right.
I did. I just finished another kind of like a SPL / Flashpoint contemporary undercover cop gangster movie. I don't know. I don't really have a particular. I like modern films better, but I know a lot of my audience love my period films, like Hero, I'm Monkey, you know, the really classic films. But in the near future, I probably want to focus more on contemporary, because I feel you have less restriction as far as if you play, for example, if you play a period film, you play someone like General Kwan, there's a lot of burden and limitation because you have to stay true to the historical background as well as audience expectation of playing that character. So it was quite, I don't know, as an actor, I want a little bit more freedom of trying different things and exploring different things. I prefer more of a contemporary set background where I'll be focusing on the next years.
Would you consider a film with no action?
Actually, I just finished a romantic with no action whatsoever. You know, it's okay, and I don't have to sweat. You know, it's a very fortunate. I've been very blessed and fortunate the past couple of years. You know, I've been given many opportunities, especially after the release of Ip Man series. I've been given opportunities where I was able to explore different type of films, comedies, romantic, you know, but I will never forget my roots. I know this is what I do best. So as an actor, I want to explore more, but at the same time, I will continue to try to elevate what I do best, which is the action movie genre.
I think it's time to turn to the audience. Don't be shy. You can ask your questions, raise your hand, and shout it loud. It's tough to hear you from here. Right in the front, yes.
I did a comedy. I did comedy last year because in Hong Kong, usually during Chinese New Year, we have these comedies because, you know, Chinese New Year, you take your family, you watch something funny, right? So again, you know, I was fortunate to be asked to be in a comedy, actually 2 years ago, and that was my first taste of being in a comedy. And the movie came out, it wasn't that bad, no one threw eggs at me. So I took another dip last year, playing another role, playing a rock singer actually. And where in the movie we have to sing and play guitar, I watch a lot of Jack Black's movie. Rocks, Do I still dance? No, not as much.
Show us your moves!
I knew that was coming. You can watch the Smash Couples. You just ask them to play the Smash Couples. Back, maybe next year. Invite me back here. Yes, you do that.
The lady right here.
I don't know much about your background, but the catalog says you grew up in Boston and your mother taught you martial arts. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I spent a lot of teenage years in Boston. I immigrated from Hong Kong to Boston during starting 1975, like late 70s. Right? My mother does teach martial arts. She recently retired, so I started off studying martial arts from her. They still have a school in Boston.
Thanks. Yes, the gentleman right here.
Is Bruce Lee a role model of yours?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
Because I know you did Ip Man, which is, I believe, the feature.
Yes, Ip Man was, well, I also did some TV series. Christopher TV series. I did Legend of the Fist. Also, dedicated to Bruce Lee played a very inspiring role in my life. Inspired many people, I believe. Still is.
Thank you. Yes, right here.
Who's your favorite on-screen fighting partner?
On screen? Thank God you didn't ask me off screen. On screen, I guess I probably have to say Mr. Jet Li. Because but very fortunate, he and I, we did 2 movies together. One is Once Upon a Time in China, Part 2, and the other one's Hero. And both of them, fortunately, it came out to be quite a classic. So, hopefully in the future I can get to work with him again.
Right in the front.
Will you do another Ip Man film?
That's a big question. Actually, me and Wilson Yip, director of Ip Man, we have talks, and we wanted to do Part 3, but at the same time we don't want to spoil it, right? So we're thinking of different angles of if we are going to do Part 3, we want to do it. We want to try to not make it as the last one. So he's still in the stage of building. Maybe next year. Maybe. But if we are going to make it, it's not going to be just Ip Man 3. It's going to be Ip Man 3D.
All the way in the back, and that might be one of the last 2 questions.
What have you heard about the Wong Kar-wai version of his life story?
I look forward to watching his, But I don't know when that movie's going to come out. But I mean, I really, he's a brilliant director. I share a little story with you guys. Actually, I was approached to play Ip Man back in 1997. A director called Jeff Lau, he asked me to play Ip Man, and Stephen Chow played Bruce Lee. And then somehow the project, contract was signed, and the project got canceled, and several years later, and I found out that Wong Kar-wai was planning to do Ip Man. Then right after I made the film called The Empress and the Warriors, I was in Beijing. I got a call from a friend of mine, producer Raymond Wong. We were planning to do Wisely, which is kind of the Chinese version of the James Bond. And then he called me up and said, you know, let's push this project aside. Let's do Ip Man. And I paused for 5 seconds. I said, number one, you know, I know Wong Kar-wai is doing it. Do you have the rights? And he said, yeah, you know, we have the blessing from Ip Man's son. You know. And then it took me another 5 seconds to think to myself, well, you know, maybe it is destiny, because I was approached playing Ip Man in 1997, 96, 97, and then years later, you know, I was approached again, and then we made Ip Man, and then that was the rest.
We have time for one last question. One last question. Yes, you have to. Yeah, okay. The lady.
It's both films. Actually, it's still here. It's still here. We are kind of reinventing those films, the new Bullet films. Starting next year, I'm gonna produce my own films. Working with a very big, prestigious, not yet to able to announce it at this moment, but I will. So next year you can see more of a Donnie Yin's films produced by Bullet Films.
Well, unfortunately, we have to close this session. The schedule is really tight. Join me.